Hi, and thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Absolutely. Where are we? Where are you speaking from? Where are you at right now?
I am in Minnesota.
Oh, okay. I was expecting you to say, "Oh, Finland or Denmark or something."
Yeah, I got a
Awesome.
Scandinavian last name, but I'm here in Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you again after a few years and being able to talk about one of my favorite groups that you are a part of with Wet and the brand new album Retransmission coming out in just a couple weeks from today through Frontiers Music.
Correct.
Yeah, I've gotten the chance to be able to check this album out this week, and it really feels like you guys are at the top of your game, even though all the craziness that's going on in the world right now, let alone everything that you guys are going through musically. It really feels like you guys are just like working so well together and creating some of the best music that you guys have created so far.
Well, thank you for that. And a lot of obviously, I'm gonna preface this by giving Eric Martinson pretty much all the credit because he was such a huge reason why the songs, even the first album, sounded the way they did in terms of how they came together, the production, the overall the outcome of the first album. And he's been very much so growing and adding to that as the years have gone. Eric has become a master engineer. He's built his entire studio from the ground up exactly the way he wanted it, based on how he needed it for his bands and the other things that he does, but especially for Wet. He's grown so much as an engineer and as a producer. It allows us to also expand upon what we're doing. The bottom line for this band is songs. The songs are the most important thing. So there's never any ego when it comes to the albums, because we realize we might have a song that we think is fucking amazing, or it might be really cool, or man, I gotta, or even an ego stroke of, well, I didn't write enough on the last album, so this has to be on the album because I need more publishing. None of that happens with this band because we realize without the songs, we have nothing. So there's a lot of outside writers. There's a lot of Eric works with a lot of other writers for all the other things that he does, everything from Eclipse to the other projects and bands that he's working with, and he churns out a lot of great songs. So if he's coming to us with a great song that's already done from soup to nuts, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, that's a great song and everything, but I didn't write anything on it. So if I'm not writing on it, we can't do it. That's not how we operate. It's always the song first, and that's why the albums continue to grow. The sound continues to grow, and our jobs at that point is to channel what we do, what we can actually contribute to make those songs be the best things that we can for that moment.
Oh, and that is such an amazing approach to have, and I wish there was more artists and groups that really felt that way, because when, obviously from the writing standpoint and also from the fan standpoint, I always feel like those are the strongest albums when you do focus on the songs and make sure that it is not about an ego. It's not about like being able to show off
Right.
everything that you can do. It's about making the song the best that it possibly can be. And, 4 albums in with Wet and, just like hearing the production get better every single time, hearing the songs get better, album to album. And, obviously everyone is shining throughout the album in different spots, but it just feels like it was meant to be that way.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I'm part of many a band and have been part of many a band that we absolutely pride ourselves in what we do and how we do it to make that band sound the way it does. You can't Van Halen and Queen would not be those bands. They wouldn't be as big as they are or were if they were just doing music from other people. Yes, of course, Van Halen was notorious for doing covers or remakes of other people's songs and other famous songs, but they pride themselves in creating their sound based on how they write and how they put those songs together. So of course I'm part of many a band that does that anyways. But a band like Wet, which was pretty much put together and kind of fabricated by Frontiers, by Serafino, we realize that the role in what we're doing, it has more to do with the music than it has to do with any one particular member or our egos. So it's always the song first, even if we don't have anything to do with the writing, and then our contributions. The way I sing those songs, it's going to sound a lot different if you get another singer or even Eric himself to sing those songs lead. You're not going to have that wet sound. That's where we shine as a band, as a project.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, that's obviously so many great points there too. I mean, with certain bands, certain artists, certain groups, I mean, there is obviously going to be different kinds of formulas that makes those bands work. But, you know, when it comes to something like Wet and you just like hear how the songs really do come first, like you've mentioned, I mean, there's just some kind of magic that really happens and you're just able to appreciate every single riff, every chorus, every solo, everything that's going on with it. Like, when it comes to something like this, when it's put together that way, you can just appreciate it that much more.
Absolutely. And one of the hardest things to do, especially in melodic rock music, for the better part of the conversation, this style of music is pretty much, you've heard everything. It's all been said and done. There's everything about melodic rock music has already been done through the decades. It's a sound that was pretty much established in the late 70s, I want to say. A band like Boston or Kansas or Journey, these bands came around and established the melodic rock stamp. So you're taking a sound that's 50 years old plus, and you're trying to reinvent it and trying to be fresh and exciting with it. It's really difficult to come up with something that has its own stamp and it has its own legs. So yeah, it gives us an opportunity to dive into different influences that, as I said, our contributions come from all the different things that we do. And that's why we're able to make Wet sound fresh and new and contemporary, even though we're taking kind of an old style or an old format of music and just kind of recycling it in our own way.
Yeah, and that's such a great way to go about it too. I mean, with a genre that is so legendary, like with melodic rock, like with AOR, I mean, when you're able to take something that's so established and you're able to put in the right kind of influences without completely changing the sound, so it no longer fits that melodic rock category, but you're still able to be yourself. You know, it's just like you can really stand out in your own different ways, and you can make the songs appeal to a different sense of people who enjoy melodic rock, and that's what I've come to expect from you guys from album to album. And again, with Retransmission, it absolutely nails it.
I appreciate that. And yeah, again, we're trying to take the best of the things that made us tick. And for all intents and purposes, this band is it's comprised of 3 different bands. Wet is Work of Art, Eclipse, and Talisman. So you're going to hear a lot of those influences in the music. And I feel honored when we do a song that sounds like it could have been a Talisman song, for instance. I feel honored that these guys are taking something that they were influenced by when they were growing up, when they were young musicians learning their craft. And I was out there touring and doing my thing with Talisman. That's part of their DNA. So in their writing, you can hear those influences, and it makes me smile to know that I'm actually able to continue utilizing those influences with somebody else, but yet it still sounds different enough while it's sounding like the original where it came from.
Oh, absolutely. So thinking about that as well, too, I mean, obviously you're known for being a part of so many great things throughout your career, along with the rest of the band in Wet. I mean, when you can go from something like your solo work or Sons of Apollo or something like Wet, I mean, does it take you any bit of time to be able to get into that mind frame, or are you able to go right from go and be able to work right away when it comes time to be able to work on new songs?
Yeah, my mind frame is it's always there. As soon as I hear this song, it's immediate. It's almost like it's like putting on an old pair of pants that familiar that you've had for many years, and you're like, oh man, I miss wearing those jeans. And it absolutely comes back to me as naturally as talking or breathing. And so I don't necessarily have to change hats. I don't have to change hairstyles. All that's in my DNA, that it all comes to me naturally when it's time to, or when I hear something and it's time to kind of add my contribution to that. And so it's all familiar territory for life. It's something I don't have to think about, or I have to go, oh man, I haven't written something like this in so long. I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Oh, and that again is such a great approach to be able to, I mean, obviously with the amount of experience that you've had, I mean, you're able to work from so many different styles and be able to add your touch to it. And that's what makes it a part of your touch, is being able to have that back resume and being able to work on that in the future. But the fact that you can just like automatically switch like that, and you can go to these different styles and not even think about it, like it's almost like a one size fits all. You're able to adapt so quickly in something like this. It's
And
such
that's
a great
something
thing to see.
I get that question asked a lot. Like when I'm in the middle of doing multiple recordings or writings for certain albums, they say, "How do you change hats at the drop of a dime?" Like when you're working on a new Sons of Apollo album and then a Wet album, they're so extremely different from one another. How do you keep yourself from not repeating something you've already done or confusing the two? It's like, because when I listen to Sons of Apollo, it doesn't sound like Wet. When I listen to Wet, it doesn't sound like Sons of Apollo. It's as natural as breathing. You hear this, you don't put your Wet hat on to go write with Sons of Apollo and vice versa. And so it's a natural process that just comes from the years of doing what I do and the years of loving what I do. And so, yeah, it just happens. It's organic.
Oh, definitely. And, that brings me back to several years ago when I was fortunate enough to be able to see you at Prog Power USA, when you put on such a tremendous set, being able to cover so much material from your past and being able to put on just a killer show from it too, and being able to see all the songs that you've been a part of and really making things your own, and just realizing all of the styles that you can pull off in, let alone in one night, let alone being able to create all of this different music going forward.
Well, I attribute that to the incredible lineup of musicians I surround myself with, because again, we are recreating different bands, different genres, different styles, and for me to have, I need the arsenal of musicians to be able to pull that off, but also pull it off believably, also to pull it off entertainment wise. And so there's so many elements that go into doing a show like that. It's not just doing a virtual jukebox of my career. It's being able to make it entertaining and to keep the show moving along, to make the audience part of that experience. All of that is so important to me. And I take that from my ringleader experience from David Lee Roth and Freddie Mercury and Prince. These guys, when they did their shows, they were events. They weren't just them going up there and go, okay, time to go make donuts. You go on stage and you got to make sure that you're giving everybody their money's worth and then some. You want people to feel like they would pay double to see that. And that's always been my credo when it comes to doing a live show. It's got to be over the top, and it's got to be something that they just feel like, oh my God, what did I just witness? And I try to do that with every single thing I do when it comes to the live form.
Oh yeah, and that's why I've been so fortunate when I have been able to see you live. It's exactly how you just described it. I mean, every time that I've been able to see you, no matter what kind of show it was, it always felt like you were putting your heart and soul into it, because you were putting your heart and soul into it. You were making sure that every song can sound as top notch as possible. And like you said, surrounding yourself with some of the best musicians the world has to offer. And, just making sure that no matter the show, no matter the setup, no matter what's going on, that it really will be that show that will make you want to come back for more, pay double, and just experience all that you can do.
Absolutely. And it's so important to me. I puzzle. I used to scratch my head when I would see performances of a band just basically standing there, showing no emotion, just basically performing the songs. Just standing still. It's like watching flies fuck. Sorry to use that as my reference. You might as well stay home and listen to the CD, because you're visually watching nothing happening. And so Freddie Mercury was the biggest influence in those terms, that when he wasn't singing, he was still putting on a show. He was still entertaining you in some way or another. The same thing with David Lee Roth. When Eddie's playing a solo, David was doing something that you just couldn't keep your eyes. You didn't know where to look. And that, to me, is the most important thing about doing a live show. And you have to give them something to look at, something to remember, something that they could sink their teeth into.
Oh, thinking about that, I mean, obviously that has become such a trademark with what you do, but when you were first starting off and starting to do live shows, like, was that just as important to you about, like, the stage show, making sure that you can be, like, the frontman that you cared so much about when you were growing up and listening to the music, or did it take a while to be able to adapt to what you wanted to create on stage?
Oh, it took a while. I look at old performances and I go, oh my God, why didn't somebody stop me? Because of course it takes a while to create something that looks natural, that's flowing. And when you're young and green and you have all the ambition, you have all the ideals in your head, they don't necessarily always transfer properly in terms of what you think it looks like out there. So yeah, it took quite a while to get that level of quality, number one, but also the level of I guess confidence. Because again, when I started with Yngwie, I was moving on the stage like a chimpanzee on speed. You're just doing everything and anything, and at some point you have to kind of hone it back and go, okay, that's too much during this section, or I'm running around so much as I'm trying to sing this song that has a lot of high notes and lyrics, so I'm winded and it sounds like shit. So you got to find that happy medium. You got to find a way to ration it while keeping it entertaining, but also got to make sure that the quality is there.
Oh yeah, and especially when you start off like with Yngwie, and that's just every Yngwie show, especially when you were a part of the band, it's just like it, the songs were so powerful and you want to be able to match what's going on there. So obviously, like being able to build up that confidence, making the stage show, making sure that everyone is getting their money's worth, it can be a lot of stress to handle, but once you finally start to get that, I can only imagine the rewarding feeling when you finally realized you were starting to nail it and you knew that you were really making the crowds happy.
Yeah, it's just finding your groove, man. Finding your groove and make it all resonate. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and again, just thinking about that, like being able to go from so many different bands and projects and being able to have that live experience and knowing how to adapt in those situations, because there's some musicians out there who can only know how to do that for one style or one band or whatever the case is. And again, just like going back to any time that I've ever been able to see you live, no matter the style of rock or metal that's going on there, you know what to do nowadays to be able to give your money's worth, being able to show yourself off, show the rest of the band off. And that's what has me so excited for when shows finally start to come back, because I know it's been a while since being able to get back on that stage, and I can only imagine the kind of energy and performance you want to be able to put back out there again once you hit the stage again.
I want to put it back out there before I forget it. And you know what? The bottom line is, especially with a new band, like when we're first starting out when we're starting the tour with Sons of Apollo for the first time, we're going out there doing all new, brand new, first time ever sung or performed new material. So at least with Soto or JSS, I have the luxury of adding a lot of familiarity to the set. With something like Sons of Apollo, you truly are going out there with the ideal of fake it till you make it. And it took a while. It took a good month and a half of touring before I could finally feel like, okay, I think this looks great. I think this is what fits for this band, because it was tough. You're going out there with a prog band. You have an audience that for the most part are used to seeing statues on stage. People in those kind of shows aren't really doing a whole lot. But I did have the luxury of having Mike Portnoy in my band, somebody who's very visually attentive, somebody who you can't keep your eyes off on stage, and that's the drummer. You're watching the drummer pretty much the entire time. So I had a showman, so to speak, in having Mike Portnoy in the band, and that helped me kind of adapt and find my own legs into what I was supposed to do with Sons of Apollo. So yeah, everything you do it's got to resonate and find its own way. Not everything I do with JSS will work with every other thing that I do.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, and speaking of that, when it comes to Sons of Apollo, I mean, the fact that Mike Portnoy is so animated and he's able to put on such a great live show, and he doesn't worry about like having to nail every single fill or beat note for everything, because he knows that the stage show, wanting to be able to have people watch the stage rather than just listening with their ear, and being able to have all of your senses fulfilled with such a great show and entertainment. Every time I've ever been able to see him, it's really hard to be able to watch anyone else on stage like you were talking about. So when you're able to adapt to that situation with Sons of Apollo, and of course the rest of the band, which, I mean, the entire band of Sons of Apollo is just like some of the finest musicians that we could possibly have in this time. And, just being able to have all that and make it for the best show possible. I mean, between both albums that you guys have done so far and the shows that you have, I mean, it just feels like it's constantly growing and growing.
I couldn't agree more. And that's what really hurts us. It kills us the most about the year 2020. It's the fact that we had a new groove. It's almost like the Emperor's New Clothes. When we went on that tour, we went out with such a vibe and such an incredible energy. The response of the album, the overall, everything was just clicking. It was like, this is what we were hoping to get on the first album, and it was all just basically falling into place. And then we had to pull the plug. It really stinks that our momentum was completely ruined by this whole COVID experience. And we're, of course, I know once we get back out there, we're just gonna take off where we left off.
In speaking of that, I mean, obviously with having the rug pulled from under you when it came to all these live shows that you guys had prepared for last year and possibly even 2021, whatever the case was going to be with that. I mean, when you have that rug pulled from under you, I mean, how do you adapt to that kind of situation? I mean, do you immediately surround yourself in work, or do you take time to relax, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, it took a minute to adapt to it in terms of not knowing how long we're going to be grounded. It took a while to even accept all the things that I did last year in terms of work, because normally I wouldn't want to overload myself with things, knowing that I have a tour to do, I have to save my voice, blah blah blah. But once I realized this was going to be around for the long haul, I was starting to accept a lot more work and a lot more situations where I could stay working, because I didn't want to just be sitting around waiting for the world to open back up, for the water to be safe to get back out there again. So that being said, I dove into every aspect of what was asked of me. I really wanted to just engulf myself, immerse myself in work. And I did so, and that was kind of my therapy. It kind of kept me sane, but it also added a new arsenal of information that I wouldn't have already had with me for the future, for things that I might be able to channel from and utilize in the future. So yeah, everything about COVID and the year off, I actually turned into a positive.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what I noticed every time that I seen music news coming from your end. I mean, being able to see, whether it's guest appearances or full-blown albums that you've been a part of last year, and I'm sure everything that will be coming to be announced in 2021 and beyond with that too. I mean, being able to plant those seeds last year and then being able to see them grow and how that comes along, and just being able to take such a terrible situation as what's going on right now and being able to turn it into a positive where you can work on albums that you might not thought you would ever have the time to be able to do, and just expand your resume.
Absolutely, and it's exactly what I did, and I wouldn't wish what we had to deal with upon anybody, but I also had to walk away with not regretting or just going, what a waste of a year. I didn't want to look back and go, I did nothing last year. I did a lot last year, and I'm very happy with the things that I've done, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out from it.
Is there anything you can say is coming out from this year, or is that still under wraps?
A little bit of both. It's still under wraps in terms of it's not been mixed yet, or there's no real set dates. But the official stuff, like the label stuff, for instance, the stuff like Wet, the stuff like Spectra, which is a new band with some of the members of Soto involved, that I co-wrote every song and did all the backing vocals for and produced. Things like that, those all have set dates. The other stuff I did, they were more independent items, and I'm not really in cahoots with every detail of how and when and why and who and all that shit. So for the most part, I'm just letting them take their ball and run with it, and it'll come out when it comes out.
Oh, and that's got me excited to be able to check that out. And obviously the work that you got coming up with that now, and being able to see this particular album with Wet coming out in just 2 weeks from today with Retransmission through Frontiers Music. I'm very curious to see what is going to be going on with Spectra as well, and then all the other endeavors that you've been a part of when that eventually gets released. It's going to be great to be able to see all those different sides of you this year and beyond.
Right on, man.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think that's a great note to be able to end on, and I thank you very much for taking this time to be able to talk to me about everything that's going on in your world. Obviously with new Wet album, Retransmission, but everything else that you've been going through within the last year or so, and everything to look forward to in the future. It was great to be able to get your insight on it, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it as well. It was great talking to you.
Oh, great talking to you as well. I can't wait to be able to show this off, and I know it's a busy press day for you, so I'll let you go. And one last time, thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
All right, Josh. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.